Odin, king of the gods, the All-Father. You know the guy, but did you know that Odin once hung himself from a tree and plucked out his own eye, all to gain wisdom in order to avoid a future where he is eaten by Loki's son, a giant wolf? Yeah, Odin's whole story is a trip, so let's tell it and start in the beginning of Norse mythology where there was just chaos, nothing, also called Ginnungagap. No, seriously, it was called Ginnungagap. The nothing, the chaos was called Ginnungagap. And above and below Ginnungagap, there was eternal ice and fire called Niflheim and Muspelheim. And eventually the two merged within Ginnungagap. And out of that, the first two beings emerged. The giant Ymir and the giant cow, Audumla. From Ymir's sweat, more giants were born, and the cow licked an icy rock into the shape of the first god, Buri. Buri thought that there must be a better way to have children than sweating and licking rocks, so he got sweaty with a giantess and licked and rocked her, and they had a son, Bor, who would then father Odin and his two brothers. And then Odin and his brothers killed Ymir, and Ymir's blood caused a flood that drowned the cow, Buri, Bor, Odin's mom, everybody. It was the first patricide, matricide, genocide, grandfathercide, every side, which is why I call this episode This was the beginning of what we now know as Norse mythology. And out of Ymir's giant corpse, Odin, with the help of his brothers, created the realms. Well, Muspelheim and Niflheim already existed, but Odin created Svartalfheim, home of the dwarves, Alfheim, home of the elves, Asgard, home of the Aesir gods, who know they were not actually called Asgardians. That's just Marvel and my favorite X-rated movies. You get it. That was good. I'm so childish. Vanaheim, home of the Vanir gods, Midgard, our Earth, and Jotunheim, which is where the only two giants who were able to escape Odin's genocide fled to and repopulated their race with a lot of sweating and rock licking. The giants then became better known as the Jötnar, or the Jötun for singular, and weren't necessarily giant beings. They often looked human-like and were the forever enemies of the gods in Asgard. So the stage is set, the 9 realms exist, and Odin ruled over all of them from his throne in Asgard, married Frigg, and actually Frigg, that's the name, I'm not cussing, and allowed a giant, a Jötun, to live on Asgard as a god. A Jötun god he became blood brothers with, and who Odin swore would always have a place at his side. That Jötun was Loki, who would later cause the death of Odin's sons, while Loki's own son would cause the death of Odin himself. But Odin did not know that yet, because he wasn't yet the all-seeing father. At that point, Odin could not see fate itself, but he felt like he had to in order to properly rule over all the 9 realms. So after his warring days of uniting the realms and establishing order were over, Odin traded in his spear and armor for a top-tier Gandalf the Grey cosplay and wandered the realms, known only as the Wanderer, because his originality in naming himself was not one of his traits. On his journey, Odin learned the ways of every culture, every trade of magic. He became incredibly wise, and eventually he learned of magical runes of prophecy and wisdom carved into Yggdrasil, the tree of life, carved into that tree by the creators and masters of fate themselves, the Norse Norns, who weave the tapestry of fate made up of billions of strings, each representing the life and fate of a being, including the life and fates of the gods themselves, because in Norse mythology, the gods are not immortal. The fates told Odin that if he wants the knowledge of reading the runes, he has to test fate by hanging himself from the tree of life for 9 nights and 9 days. And as if this wasn't enough, he had to also stab himself in the chest with a spear beforehand. And also kind of just realized that I structured this thing poorly, because I already told you in the beginning that he hung from a tree. So yeah, surprise, surprise, he did that and he survived. Which, by the way, is okay that I spoiled that in the beginning, because I hate movies that halfway through they put the lead in like artificial mortal danger, as if we're gonna think Odin dies halfway through when the movie is called The Life of Odin. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Peter Quill. Really in space because of the music? Nah, come on. After 9 nights and 9 days, Odin gained the knowledge he was seeking. He understood the magical runes, and that gave him the ability to see the fate of the cosmos. And now Odin was able to see the end of that cosmos. He was able to see Ragnarök, which ended with him being devoured by a wolf, and because being swallowed by a random wolf has Loki written all over it, Odin quickly figured out that the wolf was his blood brother Loki's son, so he made Loki reveal the truth and learned that even though Loki was an Asgardian now, Aesir god, damn it Marvel, Aesir god, he was an Aesir. Asgardian is just catchy, they're an Asgardian is catchy. Even though Loki was an Aesir god now, he had 3 secret monstrous children with a Jotun woman. Those children were the giant wolf Fenrir, the giant world serpent Jörmungandr, and a girl that was half beautiful and half a rotten corpse, Hel. Odin saw that all 3 children had a role to play in the end of the world in Ragnarok, so he banished the serpent to the oceans at the far end of our world. Thank you, Odin, for sending it to Earth. He chained up Fenrir and exiled the girl Hel into the underworld. But that wasn't enough, because Odin was so desperate to fight fate itself and prevent Ragnarok that he sought out more wisdom. And for that, he went to see Mimir, the wisest of all the Jötnar, guarding the well of wisdom, which sits at the foot of Yggdrasil, containing water that grants ultimate wisdom to whoever drinks it. And it goes without saying that Odin really wanted a drink of that water. And because it was for a noble cause, like saving the cosmos, Mimir told him that in order to be granted a sip, Odin had to rip out his own eye. For no apparent reason other than everybody here seemingly being sadistic as hell. Like, I held my tongue on the tree thing, but the unnecessary spear wound on top of the 9 days and nights of hanging, now the eye, my guys were just trolling Odin for real. But for Odin, there was no sacrifice too great for the sake of saving all life. So he ripped out his eye without hesitation, drank from the well of wisdom, and now Odin was the wisest thing in the cosmos, which ultimately led him to learn that fate is inevitable. Ragnarok was bound to happen. There was nothing Odin could do to stop it, and it would be signaled by the death of Odin's own favorite son. Which, no, it's not Thor. I know some of y'all into the story right now, like leaning forward and you're like, Thor, no. But nah, Odin's favorite son is not Thor. It's actually Baldur, the god of light. Still, even though he knew it was inevitable, Odin was determined to not go down without a fight. And knowing what's coming, him and the goddess Freya basically came up with a drafting system for the army that would face off against evil in the war at the end of times. They created the Valkyries to recruit people for Valhalla. The Valkyries were beautiful women that would scour the battlefields to collect the souls of the bravest slain warriors and bring those souls to Valhalla, where they would enter an eternal training arc, fight all day, drink all night, and be healed over, I guess, the rest of the night. Rinse and repeat until the day Ragnarok calls, and all the warriors would storm out of Valhalla's 550 doors, each so wide that 800 warriors can storm through side by side. An army of elite warriors, each warrior granted the title Einherja, which translates to Army of One, and believe it or not, is also the name I gave to my penis. Other than prepare the army of Einherja, Odin did everything he could to avoid what he knew was meant to be the trigger for Ragnarok, the death of his son Baldur. Odin and his wife went to every being in the cosmos, animals, plants, humans, gods, giants, and made them all swear an oath to never harm Baldur. The only thing that they forgot to ask was the mistletoe tree. And decades later, when they thought they were safe, and Odin believed to maybe have successfully stopped Ragnarok, the All-Father was betrayed from a source he never expected, his blood brother Loki. Loki could never forgive Odin for locking away and exiling his children, and he built up hatred against Odin and his beloved son, Baldur, and he worked tirelessly to find a way to kill Baldur, and eventually found out that the mistletoe tree never swore an oath to not harm Baldur, so Loki made an arrow out of mistletoe, which was then used to kill Odin's son, and was the beginning of the end, the beginning of Ragnarök. Odin was furious, but since he swore a blood oath to Loki, he couldn't kill him, so he thought of something that was somehow even more devious. See, Loki didn't just have 3 monstrous children that Odin exiled. Loki also had a family on Asgard, a family of Aesir gods, and Odin punished Loki by tying him to a rock with the intestines of Loki's own Aesir son. Bruh, noja. So now Loki was tied to a rock with the intestines of his son, but Odin made sure Loki would suffer even more under drips of vicious poison above him that would drip on his forehead while Loki was unable to move and cause a pain so agonizing that it only cemented Loki's hatred for Asgard and Odin. See, in all of Odin's attempts to prevent Ragnarok, it was him training up Fenrir, banishing Jormungandr and Hel, and Loki's anger over the treatment of his children and the pain Loki suffered in his eternal torture under poisonous drops tied to a rock with the intestines of yet another one of his children. All that is what really caused Ragnarok, because what Odin didn't know, didn't foresee, is that the army of evil consuming Asgard during Ragnarok would be led by Loki himself. Odin's wisdom and knowledge of the prophecy was the deciding factor in it being self-fulfilling. Fate could not be avoided. Loki eventually broke free from his captivity, freed his children, and with the help of his daughter, who became the queen of the underworld, and Surtur, a fire giant hidden away in the eternal fire of Muspelheim, Loki mustered up an army of evil and launched Ragnarok, a war to end the world. But I'll cover Ragnarok in another video. You might have noticed that I didn't mention Helheim as one of the 9 realms, and that's because it's disputed that Helheim is one of the 9 realms. Helheim is often thought to be a part of Niflheim, also known as Nifel, and some state that Nidavellir is instead the 9th realm, while others say Nidavellir is simply synonymous with Svartalfheim as the home of the dwarves. And the simple truth is that the old Norse mythology never really lists the 9 realms specifically, so there's room for interpretation if there's even 9 realms and what the realms are, and I'm very happy to see you interpret what you think about that in the comments. And this is always so cringe to say, but it's true. A subscription helps this channel a lot, a comment helps a lot, a like helps a lot, ringing that notification bell, well, tapping it so it rings for you when you are subscribed and watch every video. It helps a lot. So if you enjoyed this video, do consider doing all these things and tapping that notification bell so you don't miss out on the next video. 2 videos a week covering all the mythologies. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope I'll see y'all in the next one. Alright? Alright.